What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to continue to examine 100 years of World Championship fights. But I want to take a look, briefly, at the first, second, and third wave of Black Murderers Row. Because these fighters played such a contribution in this game. They're so underrated, so underrated. In that first wave, you would have fighters such as Sam Langford, Harry Wills, Joe Jeanette, Sam McVey, Jack Johnson before he became heavyweight champion, 1908, when he knocked out in the 14th round, Sydney, Australia, Tommy Burns. Jack Johnson would become the first black heavyweight champion in boxing history. He would be a colored heavyweight champion when he defeated Denver Ed Martin. But you had other fighters such as Sam Langford, who was a 5-time colored heavyweight champion, 1-time colored or European middleweight champion, who was a Boston featherweight champion in the amateurs. He was a 1-time Australian heavyweight champion, took that title from Sam McVey, who was a Mexican heavyweight champion, Panama Joe Gans, colored middleweight champion, Jack McVey, was part of the second wave, Black Murderers Row. We had the Harlem Thunderbolt, Harry Smith, the Pride of Harlem, Jack McVey, Panama Joe Gans, he had William Ward, better known as Kid Norfolk, Black Thunderbolt, and George Godfrey would be the colored heavyweight champion. Now, William Ward was born July 10th, 1893, Norfolk, Virginia. Died April 15th, 1969, some say 1953. But he would reside in Harlem, New York. He stood 5 foot 10 inches. He weighed 165 to 185 pounds. Some say 183 pounds. He was managed by Leo P. Flint, who also managed Panama Joe Gans. And William Ward will be inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame. 1955. That would be the Ring Boxing Hall of Fame. And the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. Now, December 17th, 1919, he would lose by a second round knockout. Denver, Colorado, to Sam Langford. Sam Langford, who was part of the first wave of the Black Murderers Row. For Jack Johnson, the Barbados Demon, Joe Walcott. Now, Jack Johnson, as I stated, was a colored heavyweight champion. He would be the first black heavyweight champion. Barbados Demon, Joe Walcott, was the first black welterweight champion. Black Fitzsimmons, better known as Kid Monday. Sam McVey would defeat Sam Langford. And Sam Langford would defeat Sam McVey. And Sam Langford would take the Australian Heavyweight Championship belt, which was actually a cup. away from Sam McVey. He would defeat Harry Wills twice out of 22 fights, lose to him 6 times, and have 15 no decisions. He would defeat Philadelphia-Jack O'Brien, 1911. Jack O'Brien was once a light heavyweight champion. George Elbow McFadden. Frank Craig, the Harlem Coffee Cooler, is also a colored champion. Klondike John Haynes. Battling Jim Johnson. 11 times, defeating him 9 times. With 2 no decisions. He would face Jeff Clark, known as the Joplin Ghost. Dixie Kid, Aaron Brown. Tiger Flowers, who was the first black middleweight champion, knocking him out in 2 rounds. Young Peter Jackson and Jack Thompson. Joe Jeanette, who, by the way, don't let nobody kid you, could probably punch just as hard as Mike Tyson. He would have 100 street fights, bare knuckle, before he put on a pair of gloves. And he would have 3 fights in 1909 alone with Sam McVey. And what would be one of the most brutal heavyweight championship bouts of all times. They were fighting for the colored heavyweight championship belt. Joe Jeanette would go down a remarkable 27 times. Sam McVey would go down 6 times. It would be a total of 32 times. These men would hit the canvas. And Joe Jeanette couldn't breathe. Literally couldn't breathe. His heart almost stopped. And they would place a paper bag over his head so he can get oxygen. Sam McVey couldn't see. He couldn't speak. Couldn't swallow. He couldn't hear. He had a broken hand, broken ribs, swollen eyes. He was almost as in worse condition as Jess Willard was in the famous 1919 Toledo, Ohio bout with the Manasseh Molar, Jack Dempsey. Sam Langford would be in a ring with Larry Temple. Invented the Bolo Punch. Joe Gans, Old Master, was the first black lightweight champion in boxing history. Ed Gunboat Smith, Fireman Jim Flynn. 4 times. He would knock out Fireman Jim Flynn out for 7 minutes. Jim Flynn would knock out Jack Dempsey. Had him unconscious until his brother would throw in the towel. But Jack Dempsey was already counted out by then. Big Bill Smith. Kid Norfolk. Tony Ross and John Sandy Ferguson. What a list of names Sam Langford would be in the ring with. Remarkable fighter. Now, Kid Norfolk would face Harry Greb August 29, 1921. Be a no decision in 10 rounds. They would fight in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Then they would fight once again April 19, 1924. This fight would be in Boston, Massachusetts. And Kid Norfolk would win on a foul, 6 rounds. What had happened was Harry Greb would be disqualified for thumbing Kid Norfolk. Be known as a headbutt. It would be known as a gouging, based on the reports that you read. But what was interesting about this scenario was that Kid Norfolk would be charged for the same offense against a previous fighter. That previous fighter in the clinch would call him a Willie boy. And at that time, you didn't call a black man a Willie boy. It's fighting words. Those are fighting words. The Kid Norfolk would face Big Bill Tate, June 11th, 1916. He would win in 20 rounds, a decision. And he would win the Panamanian Heavyweight Championship belt. Would fight him in Panama City. In case I forgot to mention, that Kid Norfolk, although he was born in Virginia, but he would reside in Panama. He would have a lot of fights there, almost 100 fights. He would come back to battle royales. Then he would begin his career in America. He KO'd George Godfrey in 4 rounds. New Orleans for the Colored World Heavyweight Championship belt. Being in the ring with Theodore Tiger Flowers, May 8th, 1923, Springfield, Ohio, and he would get rid of him in the first round. January 30th, 1922, Atlanta, Georgia. 3rd round knockout. We'd fight him twice. Knock him out twice. And Tiger Flowers would become the first black middleweight champion of the world when he would defeat Harry Greb, 1926. April 27th, 1925, Kid Norfolk was banned from the state of California due to vision of one eye, lack of. And that would be as a result of the Harry Greb fight, 1921. And Norfolk lived on Norfolk Street, Belmont, Virginia. He adopted the name of Norfolk from the section of which he lived in Virginia. Moved to Panama as a kid. Defeated top fighters. But he was allowed to face very little of them. But the greatest fighters that he would face would be black fighters. Fighters such as Harry Wells, Jeff Clark, Joplin Ghost, Lee Anderson. It would be at that point where he would become the colored light heavyweight champion. Lee Anderson was a man that if you owed the gambling agencies any money, and you heard a knock on your door at 3 a.m, chances it would be Lee Anderson. He would collect the money. That was his job. But he'd also be a color light heavyweight champion of the world. Kid Norfolk would also face Harry Greb. Harry Greb was the America's light heavyweight champion when he would defeat Gene Tunney in 1922. He would become the world middleweight champion when he would defeat Johnny Wilson of Harlem, 1923. And when he defeated Tiger Flowers twice, Flowers was the first black world middleweight champion. Flowers would beat fighters such as Harry Greb. He would lose to Mickey Walker. that would be about it for his championship. Kid Norfolk would be in the ring with Jamaica Kid, James Tut Jackson, Jack Blackburn, Big Bill Tate, Blackfoot Simmons, known as Kid Monday, battling Siki. Siki was the first black light heavyweight champion of the world. When you look at the Harlem Thunderbolt, Harry Smith, who's to your left, and you look at Jack Blackburn, who is to your right, these fighters made a tremendous impact in the game. Besides being a tremendous fighter and should be in the Hall of Fame himself, he would create two black world heavyweight champions. Armand Raymond Creed, Jersey Joe Walcott, and the Brown Bomber, Joseph Louis Barrow, better known as Joe Louis. We would also train fighters such as Sammy Mendel and Canada Lee, Lou Ambers. You name him, he trained them. And Harry Smith was from Jamaica. His family would pick up and move to Harlem, New York. And Harry Smith wanted to become a dentist. But he also wanted to become a prize fighter. And his father owned a limousine company, had real estate in Harlem. And he really wanted Harry Smith to become a dentist. Harry Smith would get a job washing dishes and he would have an issue. One of the workers there would say, let's step outside, and Harry Smith would get a bloody nose and he would wind up walking into Grubb's gym. And he would have a record of 60-0 with 55 knockouts with no defeats as an amateur. He was an outstanding fighter, was Harry Smith. He's my number one world middleweight champion of all times. He would take on Jack McVey, known as the Pride of Harlem, 1929. And he would win the colored middleweight championship of the world. Oh, what a big deal that was in Harlem. But Harry Smith didn't get involved in the tournament. See, there was a tournament that was created when Mickey Walker didn't want to face Harry Smith. And Harry Smith and his management team had offered Mickey Walker a tremendous amount of money. Walker didn't accept. And he would give up the title and campaign in the light heavyweight division. So a tournament was created with William Gorilla Jones, Jones would become champion and lose his title. Marcel Theo. Many say that was a robbery. You judge for yourself. The Harlem Thunderbolt. Along with George Godfrey, Harry Wells, Kid Norfolk, Panama Joe Gans, Soldier Jones, who would also be a part of Ray Robinson's entourage, along with Harry Wiley Sr., would all be in Grubb's gym. Remarkable fighters these men were. Jack Blackburn would face Sam McVey in sparring, but he would fight Sam Langford 6 times. Be in the ring with Dave Harley 3 times and Joe Gans twice. George Godfrey would become the colored heavyweight champion. And Harry Wills was disqualified in 1926 and had his colored heavyweight championship belt removed. Before Jack Sharkey. And it was stated that Harry Wills was disqualified for excessive holding. You'll read someplace else that he was disqualified for low blows. Whatever the case, Harry Wills was disqualified, and so they revoked his colored heavyweight championship belt. So George Godfrey would win an elimination bout and become the colored heavyweight champion. And he would lose his title to Larry Gans of Canada. He's another fighter you would find in Grubb's gym, sitting around talking old times and correcting a man who was shadowboxing, making sure he kept his hands right. That young man was Walker Smith, better known as Smitty. He later on known to the world as Ray Robinson. George Godfrey's to your left, and Harry Wills is to your right. Now these 2 men would be spotted in Grubb's gym, located on 116th Street. To your right would be the only man that would hold 3 world titles simultaneously. Featherweight, welterweight, and then the lightweight championship belt in that order. In that order. His name is Henry Armstrong, Medley Jackson. He's to your right. And to your left would be Smitty, Ray Robinson. And they would both be handled by perhaps the greatest trainer in boxing history. His name is Harry Wiley Sr. Very underrated trainer. Because Harry Wiley Sr. would direct Ray Robinson, the Metropolitan North American Bantamweight Championship title, 1938 in the amateurs. The 1939-1940 Golden Gloves, Chicago Golden Gloves. 1946, Ray Robinson would earn under the tutelage of Harry Wiley Sr. the welterweight championship belt. Robinson would become a 5-time middleweight champion. Henry Armstrong be the only welterweight champion to defend his title 19 times. He'd be 27-0 with 26 knockouts in 1937. Along the way, would pick up the featherweight championship belt from Petey Cerrone, October of that year, and be the first black featherweight champion of America. And he would win that title in New York's Madison Square Garden. He would defend his welterweight championship belt 5 times in October alone. 1939. What a fighter Henry Armstrong was. Black fighters have played a tremendous role, and I just wanted to make sure we understood that. 100 years of world championship fights. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fighters and all great fights will never be forgotten on my channel. Salute to my subscribers. Let's continue learning more about 100 years of world championship fights. Salute to the black fighters.